You are born in the high mountains where civilizations are still being shaped by stone, fire, and survival. Before kingdoms, before empires, before even written memory, there is only land, harsh, beautiful, unforgiving. This is where your story begins. You are not just a person, you are a civilization.
In the Armenian highlands, early civilizations begin to form. Stone becomes shelter. Shelter becomes villages. Villages become identity. You learn to survive winters that feel endless, and summers that demand everything you have. Slowly, something new appears. A people is forming. Across valleys and mountains, early communities begin to connect. Trade begins. Routes form between distant regions. For the first time, you are no longer just surviving alone. You are becoming something larger than survival itself. You are becoming a nation. But peace does not last. To the west rises Rome. To the east rises Persia. Two of the greatest empires the world has ever known. And you are caught between them. Not strong enough to conquer them, but important enough to fight over. Borders shift constantly. Armies march through your land again and again. Kings rise and fall depending on who controls your valleys. You are not the storm. You are the place the storm passes through. In the year 301 AD, everything changes. You are no longer just a people surviving between empires. You are about to become something the world has never seen before. A nation defined not only by land, but by faith. You become the first nation in the world to adopt Christianity as a state religion. It does not happen suddenly. It happens through struggle, through transformation, and through belief that something greater is worth protecting. Ancient temples begin to fade. New churches rise in their place. Not made for kings or conquest, but for faith and identity. Stone by stone, your culture begins to change shape. But something deeper stays the same. You are still fighting to exist. Because adopting a new faith does not stop the pressure around you. Rome still watches from the west. Persia still watches from the east. And both understand something important. A people united by faith is harder to control. Tensions rise. Demands are made. You are pressured to abandon what you now believe. But something inside your identity has already changed. You are no longer just surviving politically. You are surviving spiritually. And then comes the moment that defines everything. The year is 451 AD. You stand on the edge of war. A war not for land, but for identity itself. The Persian Empire demands that you abandon Christianity. Your leaders refuse. And in that refusal, history changes direction. You prepare for battle. You know the truth already. You are outnumbered. This is not a war you are expected to win. It is a war you are expected to submit to. But you do not submit. You gather under Vardan Mamikonian. Soldiers, farmers, families turned warriors. All standing for something greater than survival. The battlefield arrives. Dust rises into the sky. The sound of thousands of footsteps shakes the ground. And then, silence before impact. Steel clashes against steel. Cavalry storms forward. Arrows darken the sky. The world becomes chaos. You fight knowing the outcome may already be decided. And yet you fight anyway. Because some battles are not about victory. They are about what survives after defeat. The battle is lost. The army breaks. But something does not break. Your identity remains. And from this moment forward, Armenia is no longer just a kingdom caught between empires. It is a nation defined by belief. A nation that chose faith, even at the cost of victory. The Battle of Avrar is over. The field is silent. Thousands are gone. And yet, as you look across the years ahead, you realize something remarkable. You lost the battle. But Persia did not win the war for your identity. Your faith survives. Your culture survives. And Armenia survives. The centuries that follow are difficult. No great Armenian empire rises to dominate the region. Instead, powerful neighbors continue to compete for influence over your homeland. Persian rulers come and go. Local nobles struggle to maintain authority. The mountains remain your greatest ally. Invaders can cross them. But controlling them is another matter entirely. Generation after generation, Armenian families continue to farm the valleys and hillsides. Monasteries become centers of learning. Priests preserve manuscripts. Scholars record history. Children learn a language that countless empires would rather see disappear. But it does not disappear. Then a new force emerges from the south. Arab armies sweep across the Middle East with astonishing speed. Within decades, territories that had belonged to ancient empires fall under new rulers. Eventually, Armenia feels the impact as well. You now live in a world transformed by the rise of Islam. New governors arrive. New taxes are imposed. New political realities must be accepted. But once again, your people adapt. They have done so for centuries. And they will do so again. Despite foreign rule, Armenian nobles continue to wield influence in many regions. Certain families become powerful enough to negotiate with empires rather than simply obey them. The Bagratuni dynasty rises among them. Its leaders dream of something many thought impossible: an independent Armenia. By the 9th century, those dreams begin to take shape. Political conditions shift. Opportunities appear. And slowly, Armenian authority expands once more. Cities grow. Trade flourishes. Confidence returns. Then comes a moment many generations believed they would never see. In 885 AD, the Kingdom of Armenia is restored under the Bagratuni dynasty. For the first time in centuries, Armenia once again possesses a recognized kingdom. The achievement feels miraculous. A new capital rises at Ani. Travelers approach its walls and stare in amazement. Churches fill the skyline. Markets overflow with activity. Artisans, merchants, scholars, and builders transform the city into one of the great centers of the region. Some call it the city of 1,001 churches. For a time, it seems as though Armenia has finally escaped the cycle of survival. Perhaps now, prosperity will last. Perhaps now, peace has finally arrived. But history rarely grants such gifts for long. New powers are already gathering beyond the horizon. To the west, the Byzantine Empire grows increasingly interested in Armenian affairs. To the east, another force is beginning to rise. A force that will reshape the entire Middle East. The Seljuk Turks are coming. And the next chapter of your story is about to begin.
Their armies move across the region with incredible speed. Kingdoms that once seemed secure begin to crumble. You watch as the balance of power shifts once again. The prosperity of Ani becomes fragile. The confidence of the kingdom begins to fade. A new age is approaching. And Armenia will once again be forced to adapt if it wishes to survive. The Seljuk advance changes everything. For centuries, Armenia has survived by adapting to powerful neighbors. But now entire regions are being transformed by war. Cities that once prospered become vulnerable. Trade routes grow dangerous. Families begin to leave their homes in search of safety. Some travel westward. Others seek refuge in mountains and fortified settlements. The kingdom that seemed so secure only generations earlier begins to weaken. Ani itself changes hands more than once. Each new ruler promises stability. Yet stability never truly arrives. Still, your people endure. Where others see collapse, Armenians see survival. Communities rebuild wherever they can. Merchants establish new networks. Nobles search for opportunities beyond the traditional homeland. Many begin moving toward the Mediterranean coast. There, among rugged hills and strategic ports, a new chapter starts to unfold. What begins as migration slowly becomes something greater. A chance to build again. A chance to create a new Armenian state. Along the northeastern coast of the Mediterranean, Armenian communities grow stronger. What was once a refuge begins to resemble a kingdom. Castles rise above mountain passes. Ports connect merchants to distant markets. Trade brings wealth. Wealth brings influence. Influence brings opportunity. Over time, the foundations of a new Armenian realm emerge. Far from the ancient capitals of the highlands, a new center of power is taking shape. This land will become known as Cilician Armenia. For a people who have spent centuries fighting to survive, it represents something extraordinary. Not merely survival. A new beginning.
The new Armenian state continues to grow. What began as a refuge becomes a kingdom. Armenian rulers strengthen their authority across Cilicia. Fortresses guard the mountain passes. Ports connect the kingdom to the Mediterranean world. For the first time in generations, Armenia is no longer simply reacting to history. It is helping shape it. Then new arrivals appear. Crusaders from Europe march east toward the Holy Land. Their armies cross lands near Cilicia. Some become allies. Others become rivals. But trade and diplomacy create opportunities unlike anything seen before. European merchants arrive in Armenian ports. Goods from Asia, the Middle East, and Europe pass through the kingdom. Cities prosper. Markets expand. Churches, castles, and towns flourish. For a brief moment in history, Armenia stands at the crossroads of civilizations. And it thrives. But prosperity attracts attention. Powerful neighbors once again begin looking toward Armenian lands. New regional powers emerge. The balance that allowed Cilicia to flourish starts to disappear. Wars become more frequent. Alliances become fragile. Trade declines. Resources become stretched. The kingdom fights to survive. For generations, Armenian rulers resist the growing pressure. Castles hold. Armies fight. Diplomats search desperately for allies. But history begins moving against them. In 1375, the kingdom of Cilicia in Armenia falls. The last Armenian kingdom of the Middle Ages is gone. Once again, independence disappears. But not identity. That, as always, survives.
The centuries that follow are among the longest in Armenian history. Empires dominate the region. The Ottomans rule from the west. Persian dynasties rule from the east. Armenia itself is divided between powerful neighbors. You no longer live in an independent Armenian state. Yet Armenian communities continue to exist across towns, villages, and cities. Farmers work the land. Merchants travel vast distances. Craftsmen build businesses and reputations throughout the region. Churches remain at the center of community life. Language survives. Traditions survive. Memory survives. Generations are born without ever knowing an independent Armenia. Yet many continue believing that one day, it will return. And despite everything that has happened, they refuse to forget who they are. The world enters a new century. Industrialization spreads across continents. Empires that once seemed eternal begin to show signs of weakness. Among them is the Ottoman Empire. For generations, millions of people have lived under its rule, including large Armenian communities. Many Armenians build successful businesses. Others become teachers, craftsmen, merchants, and farmers. Ancient churches continue to serve as centers of community life. But tensions grow across the empire. Nationalism spreads. Political instability increases. Different groups begin demanding change. The government grows increasingly fearful of losing control. As Europe moves toward war, uncertainty spreads throughout the region. Few realize how dramatically life is about to change. A storm is approaching. In 1915, one of the darkest chapters in Armenian history begins. Across the Ottoman Empire, Armenian communities face mass deportations and displacement. Families are forced to leave homes that had belonged to generations before them. Entire communities are uprooted. Churches, schools, and neighborhoods are left behind. Many people never return. The impact is felt across every part of Armenian society. Families are separated. Communities disappear. A people who had lived in parts of the region for centuries are scattered across the world. Yet even in exile, Armenian identity survives. New communities emerge in Europe, the Middle East, Russia, and the Americas. They carry with them their language, their traditions, their faith, and the memory of the homeland they lost. The First World War comes to an end. Old empires collapse. New borders appear across the map. For a brief moment, an independent Armenian republic emerges. The dream of statehood has returned. But the region remains unstable. Powerful forces continue to compete for control. In 1920, Armenia becomes part of the Soviet Union. Life changes once again. Factories are built. Cities expand. Education becomes more widespread. At the same time, political freedoms become limited. Religion faces restrictions. The government exercises tight control over daily life. Yet Armenian culture continues to endure. Writers continue writing. Artists continue creating. Families continue passing traditions to new generations. Once again, survival takes a different form. Then, near the end of the 20th century, history changes again. The Soviet Union begins to weaken. Republic after republic seeks a new future. In 1991, Armenia declares independence. For the first time in generations, Armenia is once again a sovereign nation. The road ahead is not easy. Economic challenges appear. Political challenges appear. New conflicts emerge. But independence remains. Yerevan grows into a modern capital. Universities educate new generations. Businesses develop. Technology and innovation become part of everyday life. Yet the past is never forgotten. Ancient monasteries still stand among the mountains. Church bells still echo across valleys, where countless generations once lived. And the Armenian people continue a story that began thousands of years ago. You have witnessed kingdoms rise and fall. Empires come and go. Wars, migrations, triumphs, and tragedies. Yet through every challenge, one thing remained constant. You endured. Not because history was kind, but because generation after generation refused to disappear. And that is the story of Armenia.